Hello Natroners, and welcome back to another episode of VFX with Natron. So today's the first official video of the new year. It's been a long year, and hey, it's cool. It's changed quite a bit since last year, or at least since the start of last year, or at least when this started last year. Anyhow, and it's changed. This is the first time I have a new little thing going on in the background too. I don't know if you noticed. Well, anyway, that's new. I built that last week. Excuse me, I'll need a drink. All right, so today, what are we gonna do? Today we're gonna be working on doing but our pirate map again. We're going to go back. Why? That's my favorite topic, because I'm working on a new intro and to try and make it, more relative, but I don't want to take my time, and I want you all to join me in this process so that you can see what I'm doing. And it's going to change a bit, but this is sort of more of a marshy thing. This is why things change along the way. But I wanted to show you what our goal is going to be today. We're going to be trying to do this. All right, and as a reference, this is a bonus reference image, I happened to stumble across a map I found of Cape Cod, Massachusetts, that was very, very detailed and had a very high resolution. And I was looking at it, and it uses a similar technique. It uses a technique we have been using, except for it does it slightly different. It's doing the whole curvy lines like we're doing now, except for it has a lot. It starts off very dense, and then it gets thinner as it goes away, as opposed to breaking up into little bits. And while that's cool and everything, doing this would be significantly harder inside of effect, without layering the stuff, and we were trying to get away from that. And I think ours looks good enough for our purposes. And honestly, there's so many lines in this. You really need a dense amount of lines to get it to look like this. And I just think it would look potentially chaotic when you zoomed out at the level that I'm hoping to do and stuff. I want to keep it simple and still read in a similar way. But this also, oh yes, and there's another thing about this, which is it uses other techniques. We can see over here, we have this like spiraling out spiky hill thing going on over here. And the marshes use, here we go, here's a salt marsh. We can see, so this is what they use for the ocean water, but in the salt marsh, they use sort of our first pattern that we made. Using a similar thing, except for they sort of just do lines and then they have random breaky up bits. So we're going to still use both of the types of patterns that we created when we're in this map eventually, or at least that's my goal, is to sort of do that. We're just going to use the water is going to be this style on the outside of our islands, or on the outside of our landmass, as we can see like this. And then when we and then for elements like mountains or marshes or something, we're going to use the other one. But I'm going to close this because this thing is a huge image, very huge, massive, and we're going to get to where we were at the end of the last episode. And as we can see, the first thing is I want to bring up one of the things, what we're doing. This is further ahead. We're at frame 78, and we can see that one of the problems that I have with this is I like the wavery thing. I thought it would look neat and so forth when I did it, but I really don't like this as much as I like the idea. I think it looked better. I did the test where I made it, instead of going sort of sideways or wavering or made it go out in the video we just saw. So we're going to switch it over to that type of thing in today's episode, and we're also going to add water in, and we're going to create actual land masses instead of using text, because as we know right now, our land mass, this is great for what we have here, is great if we have text that we want to use and create an island around it. It's called, kind of frames it, which I think is a kind of a cool effect. And we definitely want to keep it. This is an option, but for our island generator, so to speak. But we want to also add the ability to add water into this. And we might, we may want to use this another way. Anyway, the goal right now, I want to let's move on and say we're gonna try and make land, because the text, we could put the text in a nice framing or something else instead of this. This was sort of because just a way to test out an island based off of where we had started before, and having the ability to push that in and out is pretty darn cool. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna move our text up. Because we don't need our text node here anymore. We're going to hit period to move that down, move our solid background away, and we're going to take our text node, put it up here, and just connect the source in like so. And what we're going to do is we're going to first start with a constant. And so we're going to hit tab after the text node and type in constant. And when we add in a constant, we're going to take this constant and we're going to connect it into the we're actually going to connect it into the solid over here, so that it doesn't, we don't want the constant to have, because the constant has an alpha channel for the background. The text node, oh wait a minute, oh no, it got rid of it. Awesome. I was worried that it wasn't gonna, never mind, we can keep it there. Doesn't matter. Actually, I'd rather have it over here, just so it's consistent. We're gonna, that way the text doesn't feel like it's these are two different potential inputs that come in. Neither is better than the other. They're just two different sources, and ultimately we want to be able to make it so that a user can put in anything that they want for an input for this. And we're going to use the solid as the thing to set up our framework around it. So let me just think about that for a second. No, I'm not going to do anything more. We're going to just focus on this at this point. I was thinking about doing a merge node to, I might do that in the future. For right now, what we need to do is after our clamp, or excuse me, after our constant, we need to add in an SE noise. SENO to get our SE noise, and that will give us our default, and we're just going to keep it in its default state. This is going to create the land masses for what we do, and we can see it looks weird right now. We've got it's all almost like a turtle shell, which I think is really kind of cool that we can get this kind of turtle shell effect, but we really don't want the turtle shelly effect. What we want to do is we want to oh, and you can see then it updated and it got the land masses. And this is also, pardon me, this is taking a long time to render. So for right now, we're going to just look at the SE noise, and we're going to be turning this into islands. And the way we're going to turn it into islands is to simply add a clamp node after it. All right. And our clamp node, what we're going to do is we're going to enable the maximum and minimum. And let me pull up my clamp node settings. I believe we set the minimum to 0.5. Yep, 0.5. And then put the maximum at 0. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us basically what looks kind of like continents. Except for when we put this, if we actually go down to where we put the water, or excuse me, where we turn this into an island and look at the end result, the problem that we face, let's look at this at a 1:1 scale. So it's at 100%. The problem that we see is that we still have the water is extruding into, first of all, our land masses are the black area, just like the text. but what is the surface of our island is right here, is pushing out because we told it we wanted it to be offset, the land to be offset from the edge of the text. So what we need to do is go back up to our erode smooth right here, and we need to set this erode smooth so that it is so that it's going to be a yeah, we want to reduce it from 65 to 0 so that the land actually happens at the edge of the land. And oh yes, and we're going to set this to frame 0 so that the curves of the water actually line up with this and with our land mass. So let's change this from 65 to 0 so that it doesn't push out away from our land masses. And then it's going to reveal our second problem, which is that our land masses are black. And so that's a problem. We need to fix that. How are we going to fix that? Well, we're going to go down here to the beginning, or to this area. And for some reason, this does not look like it's lining up as well as I had hoped. It's a little weird, but we're not gonna worry about it. The way we are going to fix the land masses is pretty simple, actually. We're going to just, I've already done this in the previous, for people on YouTube, they don't know. We had a problem, little small smidge, had to restart this because of an audio glitch. Anyway, so what we're going to do here is we're, right here, this is what determines the black area. This inverts basically what's coming down to it and turns it into it basically takes it and reverses it so that it's black, so the text would remain black afterwards. But we want to be able to keep it white, and if we can see that if we just break this right here and turn it so that there's no input, it turns our water back to white, or our islands back to white. So all we need to do here is basically make something that's going to break this solid. And what we're going to use here, oops, I didn't want to get rid of that dot node. What we're going to do is use another switch. And the reason we're using, actually I didn't get into the switch. Oh, didn't mention why we're going to have a switch. We'll talk about this. Do we need to talk about the switch? I actually don't think we need to talk about the switch. You only need this one switch. Maybe. We'll see in a minute. All right, we're going to put a switch in here. And the reason we're using a switch, as opposed to altering like a merge node, you know, we could adjust the mix level of a merge node, but that will could cause some other issues. But for right now, let's do a switch. Switches are actually the best thing. If you're going to do this, do it right. Switches are designed for this. So what we're going to do is basically have it so that input 0 comes in here. That's the default. It's going to be the black. That will be what we'll use if you do text. And if we want it to be, if we want it to go to white, all we have to do is switch this to 1. And it basically, so 0 is black, which is 0 happens to be the color of black, and white happens to be 1, which is, you know, the color of white, at least inside of Natron. So there we go. That fixes that problem. Now we want to turn the water blue, and I think we may need to do something else in here. And I want to get down. Let me just look at my reference. Actually, this might work. All right, we're going to try it here. So what we're going to do is up here, we're going to add a new merge node right after. All right, so let's look at where we are. We have our distorts coming down right here. This is right after our, this is our clean images coming right down in here. Our clean water. And what we're going to do is we're going to do we're going to put a merge node after it. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to take and put a solid. So all I did for the solid is I just copied this solid by hitting Alt-C up to this point. We put it over it, merge it over it. We're going to change this from white to a an ocean color or a bluish color. So all I picked was this water right here. This is going to be our water. And the problem we can see right now, or right away, is the fact that it doesn't actually make our water, it doesn't make it white. It turns it to a this kind of, it turns our water lines to blue, which is not what we want. So how do we fix this? Well, it's simple. All we have to do is think of this as pre-multiplication. If we pre-multiply this or multiply this, we will turn white to the color and keep the black lines. So all we have to do is change this from over to multiply, like so, and lo and behold, we now get a dark blue. But the problem is this is so dark, it won't let anything, or it will more or less obstruct our map texture, parchment texture below it if it's this dark. So what we're going to do is just lighten this up. We're going to set it from a mixed value of 1. We're going to set it to 0.2, and that's going to just drop it. And just so you can see, it makes it kind of a, here, let's just disable this and enable it so we can see. And as we can see, the water, it's now black lines on water. And then we go down here to this, and we should wind up with black. This is the outline of our black land masses, and then this is our actual land mass, and then this is where we would add in the if we wanted the land masses to be black as opposed to white. So we can actually alter that, or the inset, in case we want to do, have something inside that's black, like text. That's what this point is for. All right, so those are our input points. Technically, for this effect, we don't even have to go past this one up here, but we're doing it for the purpose of this. All right, so that pretty much gives us, let's take a look at that full screen. Let's fit it, and we'll make it nice and big. And we can see this is pretty much what our water is going to look like. I really like it. It looks like water. We can easily identify that the lines, the ocean lines, go into this. We've given it a nice color. We have our land masses on top of it. They're all ripply and everything. However, we do want to, I want to do something else. One of the problems that we face, and this will become apparent when we actually start animating it, and because we're going to do some animation, I think it's time to zoom in. This over here is just a redraw error. Don't worry about it. It's not actually broken. It looks funny because Natron has a broken error. Oh, it's just not refreshed correctly. We could disconnect it when it renders out to file. It will be fine. What we're going to do is we're going to zone our area. If we hit F and zoom out, so that this fits to the screen, when we click on this, it creates a region that we can look around, and we can place this around, and it will only redraw that area. So what we're going to do is find a nice area that we can use as a reference. I don't care. I'd like to get one that has a little, there we go. We have a bit of an island. We can see an inlet. We can see pretty much everything we need to see right in this little bitty area, so that we can evaluate how this is going to animate, and how and what we're going to change. So where the animation happens is up on this branch over here. We have the two SE noises, as you may remember. This one here is I believe, oh wait, yes, this one is our static. This determines our landmass shape. And this one over here has an expression on it that animates it over time, so that it will, warble and distort. We're going to actually remove this one. We'll move it over for the moment. And actually what we're going to do is we're going to be putting a switch in here, probably. Because we're going to be wanting, this is one of the reasons I wanted to use a switch is we don't know if we want to create multiple inputs. One of the big advantages of a switch over using a merge is it's simpler. There's only one control really in a switch. And B, it can switch between multiple inputs, which is something that you can't do with a merge node. If you put a merge node, if you run things into the merge node on the A channel and the A1 channel and so forth, and try to slide the 0 to 1, you can go 0 will be input B, but 1 is input A, A1, A2, A3, etc., so on and so forth until you run out. Which I don't know if there's an upper limit, but it may be 10, probably 20, might be. No, I don't think actually the merge node is limited. Well, anyway, that's a different topic. I'm wondering. So the switch node, the advantage of the switch node is when you put the inputs in, you have input 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. When you switch, you tell it which input you want. So you have 0, 1, 2, etc. And it also has an automatic mode. So by default, if you have automatic set, if there's nothing coming in, it defaults to 0. But if you connect anything to one input 1, 2, 3, or whatever, if it senses an input, it always takes whatever the highest input is and routes that into it. And that's really useful from the standpoint of making plugins, because it means you can have a default way that something works. And then when you plug a source input into that on the plugin, it will automatically switch to the source input that the user has put in. And that's a really useful thing. And that's why we want to use a switch there, is because we want to be able to, say by default, I want to think of this as working with text. It's designed so that it'll automatically work with text. But when we don't want it working with text, we wanted to switch to this other thing. And we also want to have the ability, for the noises, we want to alternate, give people the option to do you want wavery water, or do you want this to be, water that rolls away? We might even make a third option where it, can roll away and waver. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. The problem we have right now is we only have this, the SE noise is dictating what is going to be it's going to be, the SE noise is currently dictating that it's going to be this moving pattern. So let's see, we want to, the easiest way I think we can do this, or do the effect we want so that it's the water's pushing away, is that instead of having the SE noise animate, what we're going to do is take the original SE noise right here. This is we're just repeating it for both situations. This is only needed over here because it's animated. But we could take, let me think. Do we want the SE noise? How did I do it in my other one? Did I actually take it off the SE noise? I took it. Actually, what I did something very interesting. So what I did is I actually took right here. I'm going to bubble out right here. So right here is our input. This is our island coming in. And then it gets turned into the curves for the water. So what I did here is I used, I put in here a dilate. So we're going to do a dilate, just a simple dilate. So D-I-L, dilate. We get to the dilate. Whoop, that dilate didn't hook up automatically. Oh, it doesn't want to, because we need to clamp it right. Okay, so you'll notice that every time I try to connect the gimmick node to the dilate, it doesn't want to connect. And that's because the dilate node is, its ROD is expanding. It says ROD, expand the ROD. Now we could turn that off, except for that would break break our effect. And so we don't want to do that. And so the easiest way to fix that is, let's put the dilate, just disconnect the dilate for a moment. And we're going to put a clamp node in here. Just put a clamp like so. And now, don't ask me why. Gimmick is not exactly the swiftest of nodes or node types. It doesn't know that you can Well, it won't accept it. Lo and behold, the clamp node accepts it, and the clamp node will automatically give us what we want. And Gimmick is all too happy to work with it now. So there we go. So we get it, and we can see. So why have we put in a dilate node? Well, the dilate node, what we're going to be doing is we want to basically take this entire thing and sort of make it so that the water pushes away slowly over time. And we're going to do this because we can only do this. Now, some of you are going to, at some point, I'm sure a bunch of you are going, well, why don't you use erode smooth and do it in a negative value? Because we can do, uses floating point. I will actually get into that after we do this effect. But basically, you're opening yourself. You can get a very, very precise, very accurate waves if you do it by hand using an erode smooth node. But the problem is it doesn't work I found out that erode smooth, when you do the offset, it doesn't actually move in a linear form. It actually moves in a really in sort of an S curve that is really, really, really it's very exponential in what moves it. So your water speeds up and then slows down, and it doesn't look good. So you'd have to keyframe every single frame of it if you use an erode smooth. We don't want to do that. So we're going to be using a dilate, because dilate and the regular dilate and the regular erode work off of fixed steps. The problem is the fixed steps we only have are what are pixel units, or well, I don't know if they're pixel units. They're fixed steps, and it's going to take exactly 4 or technically 5 pixel steps to go from one wave to the next, which means we get exactly 5 frames to work with. And if we were to animate this at normal speed, that would be going really, really, really fast. It would be so fast it wouldn't look good at all. So what I decided to do for this effect was to do it on 2s, like it's a 2D animation, because basically these are supposed to be drawings, so why the heck not? Why not just do it like 2, animate on 12s, or do your animation on 12s. So that's why we're going to actually change our project length from 250 frames down to 9, because we start on frame 1 and we are going to be ending on frame 9, which is 8 frames later. So there we go. We're not going to actually change our project length yet, but we will do this in a bit. So, all right. So on frame 1, obviously, we want to set the size to 0. We do not want this to move forward. And we can see that here, there we go. We're going to set a key here. And we're going to have this key on all dimensions. And then we're going to go to frame 9, which should be, all we have to do is tell this, let's tell it that we want to go 8 frames. So we click on the 8 frames forward and we get to frame 9. And here we're going to just set it so that instead of an X of 1, we're going to set it to an X of 4. And honestly, if you just double click, we want to keyframe both. It should automatically work, but I hate it when they're both not keyframed. I don't know. It just drives me batty. So if you double click this twice, you'll see the 2 here. You'll see that it updates it, and it will add a keyframe on both of the axes. And then that way we are guaranteed to see it. So now if we were to hit play, we can, this framing is actually a wee bit on the big side still. Let's zoom this in just a smidge more, I think. I think we can, well, let's actually go back down. Let's just see what this is doing right now, so we can sort of see why we're going to do this. Actually, before we do this, let's look at the big problem. Let's make sure we get the dilate up in our properties, and let's go over to curve editor, because we're going to see something right here when we zoom in, which is that it's using what's basically called a step. It's basically constant, staying 0 all the way up until the point that it gets to 1. Let's try and fit that so we can see. So here's frame 1, here's frame 8, and it remains 0 all the way up to frame 8, and then it jumps to 1. So basically, if we go back 1 frame, this should revert to the original pattern, which is not very good if we're trying to make this move offshore. So what we need to do here in our graph editor is we need to select these, and we need to right click, and we need to change the interpolation to linear. And lo and behold, when we change it to linear, we wind up with this staircase. And the reason that we get a staircase is because, as I said before, this only works, the dilate moves in increments of basically whole numbers, integers. And so we will only move out exactly 1 unit. So if we go ahead 1, we can see that because we've set this to loop, watch what happens as we go forward in time. We move out 1 pixel every frame, or every 2 frames, excuse me, except for on the first one, because for whatever reason, we only need it there. You know, we could probably take this out to 10 to do it on 2s, but whatever. It's working good enough here. I found this worked fine. You know what? I actually think we are going to take this out to 10. I'm going to change it. Oh, is that right? Wait a minute. No, to 11. Let's try moving this out to 11. I think we can wind up with even a slightly slower animation if we do that. Go over to our dope sheet, zoom in on our keyframes, and just move out to frame. Let's go out to frame 11 instead of 10, and then grab that keyframe and pull that out to frame 11. Let's just see if that fixes it so that we get truly get 2s. I'm hoping we're going to get 2s. Otherwise, we got to go back to the beginning. All right, so we start off here, frame 1. We go out 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yep, there we go. We have perfect line up. Yes, do it on 11s. Oh, no, we're going to do it on basically, I think that actually makes it 10 frames. So we'll set this to 10. So we're going to make it a 10 frame animation. Let's go back to the beginning and make sure. Yep, it's exactly 10 frames. Perfect. So we get 5 steps. All right, so let's hit play and just look at this like this. And we should get this to loop. And we can see that it's an infinite loop. Or at least it looks mostly like an infinite loop, except for we can see right here, there's something funky here. There's this big jump right at this point on the land masses. Let's zoom down into here, and we can see when this particular line gets out here, we can see that it jumps, it skips, and that's not good. We want it to continue perfectly so that this is perfect blend, so that this keeps going consistently. So let's see actually what's happening down in our final output when we do that. All right. So again, we're just looking at a small area. We're seeing it now after it's animated. We can, you know what, we'll shrink it down even more. So we can see this area, because we only need to see how it affects the island and how it affects this one little landmass right here. All right, so let's go back and to the beginning and hit play, and we'll let this render out. This won't take long at all, I don't think. How long have we been recording? About 30 minutes. Plenty of time. And you're going to see the big problem. We can see that when we go from frame 8, where it's at, or from frame 1 or 8 to 1, you can see that it resets. Basically, this line just pops into existence. The other lines stay fine. We have, you know, just before it, and then we have just after it. It goes 1 frame. And it might even, you know what, we may switch this back to 8, because I think this is actually, those are too close to one another. Yeah, we're gonna, we're going to switch it back. All right, change this back to frame 9, because we're going to wind up with 4 frames. Because all right, take this back to frame 9. There we go. Boy, I thought it was going to look good, but it does not. Meh, you know what? We haven't actually tested it. Let's give it a go. I don't know. It might actually look good when we fix the problem. Let's focus on fixing the problem. We can always fix those keyframes afterwards. I'm just thinking about I was just thinking about it. I just don't want to hold this up anymore. So how are we going to fix this problem? Well, the problem is that we need the land mass to move out, and the land is actually set by this area of this distortion here. So let me just think about this. That's our UVs, right? It comes in right here. So this is where we need to actually pull this down, pull that down. Let's pull this all down just a smidge so that we have room to work. I got to pull that down a bit. Let's pull that down. This is our water. There we go. So that don't worry, that's just a refresh bug right there. Then this is sometimes when you restart Natron or reload a Natron project to revert it, it leaves these ghost connections to cloned nodes. It's just a refresh error. Don't worry about it. It's not a problem. We want to, I don't know, we don't want that one to distort, but we do want this one to distort. So what we're going to do right here is we're going to put did I do an erode smooth? I think I did. Let me just double checking. Yes. We're going to use an erode smooth. Pull up that. So right here, what we're going to do at this branch, so everybody can see. So if we follow, this is our islands. The part of the black part of the island comes in here. We have it right here. That comes in and forms, this is the outside line of the island, right? And then this is the inside of the line. And so the inside is right here, the outside is there, and together they create this black line here. But they all originate from this area up here. So what we're going to be doing is before we distort this, we're going to modify our input so that yes, we're going to modify our input so that it distorts properly. Let's go back down here for a minute. Actually, we can just go here for right now. We're going to put right at this point that I added here. This is where it branches off. This is the distortion. I just want to remind people, this distortion right here is the distortion for that handles the animated or the animated water bits over here when we're doing animated water, or the animated water from over here. This does the stationary distort, and because we're dealing with stationary distort, we want to use this for our for deciding where what we're doing is we're animating or updating our let me just think about this for a second. Yes, we only want this to apply to the island itself. We don't want it to work on the other bits. So, all right. So, how are we going to do this? What we're going to do is put in a erode here. So, we're going to hit Tab. We're going to do an erode smooth right here. We're going to just simply set this to -3. Why are we setting it to -3? Well, -3 should bring our land mass on frame, as long as we're on frames. Oh no, this will actually show up best on frame 11 or 8, depending on, I mean 9, excuse me, depending on how we end up using this. What this is going to do is we're going to see this is going to offset this approximately to where the other one starts, and we'll just change it. Here, let's just hit -3 here. And watch our landmass. This whole landmass area should shift out so that it's even. If everything worked right. Oh, and the reason it didn't, remember with a road smooth, you have to enable alpha channel. As soon as you enable alpha channel, then it will move out. There we go. So now we can see it's moved out. And I mentioned last time that in my original version, I had less lines and I liked it more with the more lines. But the fact is it worked just as well with this, and it's going to still have the same lines because those extra lines are actually going to be coming out now from the shore as we animate. So now if we go back to the beginning of this animation, we can see it shouldn't shift all that much. So here we go. And we can see now that there are water lines that are actually touching the land mass. And as we go out, let's just watch this as it goes out. We can just, you know what? Let's just hit play and watch it. No need to beat around the bush. We'll just watch what happens. See if this is going to work at 11 with a movement of over 11 frames. It's going to take a little while to render out, but it shouldn't be bad because we're just looking at a small zone of this whole thing. We can see it's skipping over the frames it doesn't need. And the reason we did put the road smooth at that point before the distort and everything is because we also wanted to get cached for the entire thing so that this goes a lot faster. And so now we can see that the water comes out from there. And I gotta say, it looks like it's pausing just, I don't know if people see it. I see it. It's definitely pausing. It does not look smooth. We get a little bit of pause because we've got the first frame and the last frame. So yes, we can't do this. This works best at 9 frames. So we'll go and adjust our oops. We need to go back to our dilate back here, and just simply take this and bring that back to. Oh, that's weird. Remember, your frames are down here. So we move it from frame 11 down to frame 9, and that should fix our problem and everything. This may not actually have to re-render with it. I guess it's going to have to. All right. Anyway, this should look a lot smoother when it's done, and we should wind up with animated water, and our overall effect should be what our final video was. Or a final effect, with the exception, as I said, we're not going to do the parchment today. I don't think putting this with the parchment is a viable thing unless we take a pre-rendered version of it. We could just, we could take a pre-rendered version of it. But again, this was because we're building this in a different graph. We have to put, in order to transport it into that, we would have to put this inside of a group. And I don't want to do that at this point. And there we go. Now it's looking very continuous and everything's flowing nice, and we can see that it's good. And if we actually view this at 100% at actual size, we can see it looks good. And so that this type of effect is going to happen for the entire thing. And that's all there is to it. That is everything, other than, turning that off so we can see the entire map and how it's going to look. And let's fit and then hit Control 1 so that we see this rendered full screen. It might take a second to update everything. And if it doesn't update, which it doesn't look like it's going to, we're going to just force a redraw. Come on. There we go. All right, so we can see that it's applying to everything, and that water will animate around the entire thing. And as we can see, while it doesn't look like it matches 100% accurate to the land anymore, it's not a 100% match, but it's close enough that it doesn't look wrong. It still looks like it is coming from the land, and it matches close enough by the time it gets out here that I'm perfectly fine with it. And we saw in the actual original animation that it is working, or that it works this way. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So the goal again was to do this, with the exception of the parchment. And I think we did that. So thanks for watching, and keep on Natroning.